If it means putting an end to Torment's reign of terror, will Peter Parker be willing to untangle the twisted web that is his personal lives with the symbiotes and their hosts? Well, we'll find out, won't we, in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 25, a continuation to the events of Death Spiral. As over in the pages of Iron Man issue number 3, Tony Stark must deal with multiple ghosts from his past when they come a-knocking. But that's not all, because the final book we have this week is Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon issue number 2. Hunted by Nuke and forced to do battle with the lost Captain America, will Logan be able to make all the difference, or has the next terrifying super soldier already been unleashed on planet Earth? Well, we'll find out together, shall we, as we hop into 3 of the biggest Marvel books on the shelf right now. So without further ado, let's not waste any more time, let's get to it, shall we? So then, picking up minutes from where the last issue left off, Spider-Man and Venom had been betrayed by Carnage, the true mastermind of the Death Spiral event. Eddie is asleep inside the symbiote suit at the moment, meaning that the fight with super serial killer Torment has now swung back in the other direction, officially making this battle a much more fair 2-on-2 affair. Now again, if you're like me, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, this should be easy, right? I mean, even just Venom and Spider-Man versus Carnage and this new guy, the hero should have the advantage, right? No, not really. If you'll recall, this is the middle part of a 12-part series. So it's actually time to kick in the brakes and start to slow things down. I mean, really slow it down. You'll remember in the last issue, MJ actually managed to pull out some of that anti-Carnage stuff, the gold bit in New Venom's suit, to help give her an edge against Carnage. Why can't she just simply do that again in this fight? Well, in what it is admittedly not a terrible justification, now that the Venom symbiote knows that Eddie is being held captive inside the Carnage symbiote suit, it's starting to pull its punches out of love that it still has for Eddie. What I had a much harder time swallowing, though, was the idea that Spider-Man can't just simply cold clock Torment and be done with it, but then again, I suppose we don't exactly know what Torment's deal is, or even if he has powers of his own to speak of. Carnage, if nothing else, proves to think tactically, realizing that they would be a lot better suited if they switched dance partners. Right now, MJ ends up soaking up a sonic blast from Shocker's gauntlets, and Peter ends up putting himself in harm's way, attempting to protect her and shield her from a follow-up attack. Carnage wants to make his brand new union with Torment official. You know, aka that thing he's wanted since this event started, but weirdly, Torment chooses this moment to actually show some backbone in the relationship, saying that he will only join with Carnage once he has finished his great work and closed the spirals, aka killing all of the Brocks, Watsons, and Parkers he can find for reasons that still not have been completely explained yet, and I guess we don't have to explain it because, you know, he's crazy. His motivations make sense to him and him alone. It's while Carnage and Torment end up debating the terms of their brand new partnership, Eddie ends up coming to and helping protect MJ and Peter from getting finished off. Torment takes this opportunity to make a tactic retreat, but instead of giving chase, Carnage ends up getting stopped by MJ, who decides that what they really need to do is give Eddie a talking to in this moment. Yeah, you know, don't chase after the villain or anything. I guess you know that we have multiple tie-in issues left to fill, so, you know, just take your time. And hey, speaking of taking your time, let us also leave this scene to check on in with Norman Osborn and Miles Morales. Yeah, this is still an Amazing Spider-Man book, meaning we still have to deal with B and C plots. This scene is also kind of maddening too. Norman is like, hey Miles, remember how we teamed up in that last arc? That was fun, right? You know how Peter is a really inconsistent mentor who comes in and out of your life at the whims of creative teams and editorial? Well, what if you and all your other Spider friends got together and started, oh, I don't know, like a Spider Academy with me? That would be worth 5 issues, wouldn't it? Yeah, if this is supposed to sell me on that brand new series, you are definitely not doing a good job. Now, back over in the real story, Eddie has no choice but to finally open up to Peter and MJ about what's really been going on with him and Carnage, how they fused together to save each other's lives, and now he's stuck in some horrifying Devil's Deal style situation wherein if he doesn't kill, Carnage will kill him. Basically, it's the conversation they should have had several issues ago, but are only now taking the opportunity to have. I actually can't be too mad at this scene because once again, while Eddie is sitting there with those hangdog eyes, Carnage is just making a joke out of the entire situation. It is darkly hilarious. Weirdly, MJ also takes this situation to completely blow up at Eddie, saying explain that all of their friends and family are in danger right now because of him. Again, I don't know if that is the Venom suit's resentment bleeding into her and affecting her emotions, or if, one of the other writers took over from Al Ewing and MJ's being all inconsistent again. Peter says it's going to take him a few more minutes to fix his tracking device, meaning that if they want to hunt down Torment, they're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. Carnage lets it slip that Torment will be going after their families, but whose? Will the long-suffering Aunt May be the next victim? What about the rarely ever seen anymore Aunt Anna? I mean, Torment just killed Eddie's dad, so it's painfully obvious that he's going after the Brock family, and the only other Brock in New York City that we know of is Dylan. But, the story would be over right away if the heroes were smart enough to riddle that one out right away. Also, they decide now would be a good time to loop on in Flash Thompson, Agent Anti-Venom. It seems that he is working on trying to liberate another symbiote. Probably one for Eddie to use, considering that his own Carnage book was canceled after 10 issues. Mostly, though, this scene exists just so Peter can become aware that MJ might have a thing for Flash now. Which, to his credit, he doesn't instantly fall to pieces and start freaking out. He actually has a pretty funny reaction, like, well, I guess you could do a lot worse than him, eh? And speaking of worse, from there we smash cut over to Paul, who is playing Marvel Rivals with Dylan. Yes, that's right, Marvel Rivals, the game, exists in the Marvel Universe. Wrap your head around that one, why don't you? I've said it once and I'll say it again too, Paul and Dylan actually have a fairly interesting little relationship. Dylan hates Paul as much as the fans do, but Paul goes out of his way to try and be nice to Dylan because, well, he knows what it's like to have a supervillain absentee father, which naturally only makes Dylan even angrier at Paul for attempting to establish some sort of character. Hell, Dylan walks away with the line of the issue when he says, "I don't care about you enough to hate you, Paul. I don't care about you at all." Which, goddamn, do the writers of this book watch my videos? Because I've been saying that from the very beginning. Dylan is about to storm out, but when he gets to the door, he's shocked to realize that Torment is already there waiting for him, looking to close his spiral. And why do I have the funny feeling that Paul is going to sacrifice himself to save the life of the kid who just roasted his ass? Now from there we transition on over to Iron Man. Madame Mask and the agents of AIM are conducting their horrifying experiment to try and create the next great Tony Stark. Some of their subjects are already dead, and the ones that remain are having to double down and get incredibly clever, like Dr. Adam Ware, the guy who actually won the Stark Prize in the first issue. We learned that this guy was a teacher, but in reality that wasn't the whole truth. What he is actually a communications expert, specifically in the realm of humans communicating with machines and vice versa. Currently, he's trying to build a machine out of a box of scraps in his prison cell to try and rally together all of the other captured scientists. Mask catches wind of this and decides to go to send her goons to beat the crap out of him. Still though, as far as this little competition goes, Ware is very much in the lead. Now where is Tony while all of this is going on? Well, he's in Madripoor duking it out with MODOK, formerly a high-ranking member of AIM, now a deposed leader who is on the wrong end of an AIM hit squad, meaning that Iron Man has to actually defend the guy he was looking for to shake down for information. Here's the truly crazy part though, Iron Man doesn't end up having to fight this battle on his own, as he is actually assisted by the return of Citizen V. Yeah, that's right, the famous leader of the Thunderbolts. We had actually seen this guy in the crowd of the Stark Awards in issue 1, and it seems that he's been stalking Tony this whole time. Iron Man knows full well that that isn't Baron Zemo under the mask. He could smell his shitty cologne anywhere. Whoever this new Citizen V is, they're playing their cards close to their chest, saying only that they are Tony Stark's guardian angel before slinking back off into the shadows, leaving Iron Man and MODOK alone. Now, as MODOK explains to Iron Man, AIM isn't exactly in a good position right now. All of the different leaders of all of the different factions have started a civil war with one another. Scientist Supreme, Madame Mask, even Taskmaster, if you can believe it. Believe it or not, this fight wasn't about control, but more about ideology and the ultimate direction of the organization. Everyone had their own idea, and masks especially scared the crap out of everyone. Now, Iron Man very much has a schedule to keep right now, so instead of just cutting MODOK loose, he decides to take him with him, in case he needs to pump him for information later. We also learned that Melinda May is also pounding the pavement, looking for her own leads into where Madame Mask might currently be hiding the scientists. And honestly, I kind of love the idea that she isn't going to be your regular sedentary supporting character. She actually has her own shit going on. Now, what was so important to Tony that he had to cut his meeting with MODOK short? Well, he has a date, you'll remember, with that nice caterer from the award show. At first, first, she doesn't exactly seem like the sort of person that Tony Stark would date, but she actually proves to be quite intelligent, saying that at the end of the day, what they do is ultimately very similar. Cooking and science, you're putting things together, following recipes and formulas to try and create something new, something that you hope will bring people joy. She even asks a question that kind of cuts through Tony's metaphorical armor when she says, what was the last thing you invented that was just solely for yourself? And honestly, Tony doesn't have a great answer, thinking all the way back to building a radio with his father as a child. This lady claiming to want to help Tony, Citizen V claiming to help Tony, I wonder. The two end up sharing a very sweet moment that quickly becomes a very awkward moment as we realize that Pepper Potts is also at this very same food truck festival picking some stuff up for the guys back at the office. What I like about this scenario is that it's actually much more awkward for Tony than it is Pepper, clearly saying that maybe he still has some unrequited feelings for her that he doesn't really know what to do with yet, while Pepper has moved on in a much more healthy way. Duty calls as Iron Man, getting Tony out of this situation, though hilariously leaving Pepper and this new woman time to talk and commiserate. It seems that the Cavalry's very hands-on approach when dealing with the agents of AIM has actually managed to turn up some very important clues. You'll remember that Madame Mass said the secret in this situation lies with Tony himself. Well, about that. In Tony's long career, he's been a superhero, he's been an Avenger, he was also ever so briefly the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., complete with his very own custom-made helicarrier. He assumed that the thing had been lost forever. But in an act of very on-brand supervillain giving the hero the middle finger, Mask had actually managed to salvage this whole thing and rebuild it, turn it into a mobile base to house all the kidnapped scientists. This means that Iron Man suits up in his stealth armor and figures that he's going to use his knowledge of this place to sneak on in unseen. Though naturally that ends up backfiring, as Madame Mask has set up a whole hologram trap to ensnare Tony just when he thought he got the drop on her. It seems that this whole kidnapping scientists and trying to create the next great Iron Man level threat was only part of a much bigger plan on Mask's part to try and trap Tony in what is essentially a house of horrors made of his greatest sins. After all, the last time his life was threatened and his back was against the wall, he created his first armor. Imagine what will happen if Mask forces him to do it all over again. Well, I guess we'll find out the answer to that and other questions when we check back on in next time, won't we? Now, lastly, this week we have Weapons of Armageddon issue number 2. This story actually opens up with a little bit of light retconning. We see that it was actually Wolverine during his brief time working for the CIA who delivered Frank Simpson to the Organization for Programming and Weaponization before he even tattooed an American flag on his face. In fact, one of the CIA doctors who oversaw the project in his younger years is now actually working for the Prime Warrior Corporation, helping them use the origin boxes to create the next great super soldier, including a brand new Wolverine. This also means that when Nuke gets called in to track Wolverine in the modern day, this is all very personal for him and a mission that he is more than happy to undertake with full gusto. Now back over with Wolverine, he is duking it out with the mysterious man who seemingly blew up the Prime Warrior building in the previous issue. We, of course, already know this man as David Colton, aka the lost 9/11 era Captain America. This guy is actually fairly famous amongst the super soldier scene, though Wolverine himself doesn't actually clock who this guy is until they get the chance to fight one another. In his internal monologue, Logan says that this guy moves like Captain America, fights like Captain America, but when given the opportunity to grab his shield, he doesn't do it, almost as if he's still ashamed about what went down back in the day. So ashamed, in fact, he's gone out of his way to make sure that no other evil governmental organization or corporation can go out of their way to create super soldiers like him, robbing them of their humanity and turning them into living weapons. And I mean, hey, he does kind of have a point. Super soldiers going rogue is a major problem in the Marvel Universe. Sometimes you get great heroes like Wolverine, sometimes you get, well, absolute psychopaths like Nuke. In fact, we actually get treated to some more snapshots of Nuke's origin. Apparently, during an early escape attempt, he almost got killed at the hands of a bear. Well, paws of a bear, but you get what I mean. Not all super soldiers are created equally, and the doctor in charge ended up getting absolutely bitch-slapped by his superior officer for this perceived failure. Nuke clearly still feels all sorts of ways in the wilderness, too, and just when him and the other grunts think they may very well have cornered Wolverine, he decides to take off from the rest rest of the group to go hunting on his own. Now back with Colton, he explains that yes, he did blow up the Prime Warrior research facility from the previous issue. He tried to save Taylor, but the kid just freaked out and ran off without him. Which is pretty worrying once you realize what Prime Warrior did to the kid. He had a healing factor and they bonded him with adamantium, but not just regular adamantium, they bonded him with Picotech adamantium. Picotech, in case you're wondering, is smaller than nanotech, and if you've heard the word Pico before, you've probably heard it in regards to the new Ultimate Spider-Man suit. Nice little bit of connective tissue they're doing here. This is also kind of a nice way to evolve the Wolverine concept. Logan might have bones made of indestructible metal, but this Taylor kid has a body that literally leaks indestructible metal. Meaning he doesn't just pop a claw, he pops his entire body. From there we transition on over to Nuke, who hoofs it through the forest only to end up coming face to face with a bear. However, this time instead of getting humbled by the animal, he instead decides to take one of his patented pills, a white one in this case, which chills him out, implying that Frank Simpson has actually managed to learn from past mistakes. And speaking of the past, we flash back yet again to see what became of that disapproving doctor. Well, after explaining how Nuke's brand new red, white, and blue pharmaceuticals actually work, he realizes that the red pill is missing, and that the other doctor who he had been abusing this whole time had actually set up this situation so that Nuke would kill him. Which, you know, manages to be equal parts badass and also kind of sad and dehumanizing on Nuke's part too. Wow, this guy's got a lot going on right now, doesn't he? Now that Wolverine and his friend have managed to discover where David Colton is hiding, the lost Captain America vows to go deeper into the woods lest he be found by Prime Warrior. Wolverine tries to get him to see sense that he's officially in it now, and that if he wanted to, he could do a lot of good coming out of the shadows, showing other people in similar situations to his that you do not need to be a gun, you do not need to be the weapon that they forged you into. But before he can fully give Wolverine an answer, though, at that very moment, Colton's Unabomber-style shack ends up coming under attack by Nuke, who's finally managed to find him. Logan and David decide that they should try and flank him from behind. And while they end up getting clear just in the nick of time, poor Terry is still trapped inside the cabin when Nuke unloads with a friggin' rocket launcher. Man, you know, old friends for Wolverine sure are hard to keep when stuff like this keeps happening over and over again, am I right? And there you have it, everybody. 3 more big happening Marvel books from the week that was. What did I think about them? Well, starting with Spider-Man, I fear to say what I thought was going to happen with this series has ended up happening. It started out with so many good redeeming qualities to it. It actually had some decent pace to it. But now that we've hit the middle of the story, things are slowly but surely starting to peter out. Characters are doing, you know, strange things to try and prolong the story. Heroes and villains spend a lot of time just sitting around explaining their motivations to each other, and oh no, we're actually starting to get more weirdo little unrelated asides like to Miles and Norman, because hey, this is still a Spider-Man book and we still need to set up other books and what's going to happen next. A shame too, because I thought this one might actually have what it takes to, you know, pierce my cold, dark Spider-Man related heart and deliver an event that was at least fun, if not revolutionary and life-changing. Overall, though, I would give this one a 6. It's not fully off the rails yet, but it is slowly but surely starting to, you know, drift towards the embankment. Here's hoping they can pull it back in the next issue. From there, of course, we have Iron Man issue number 3. This one continues to chug along at a good pace. What I liked about the previous 2 issues stays very true here. I like that we're getting a very nice, very deliberate split between Tony's time as just a regular guy, well, as regular as a billionaire philanthropist life can be, and his actual time as Iron Man. I like that they're actually playing around with his love life again, letting him, you know, try out new romantic interests, and that, of course, causing a lot of drama with Pepper and everything. It's just good old-fashioned classic Marvel stuff. Madame Mask's plan actually continues to be fairly interesting. I love the Iron Man deep cuts here, including the helicarrier and the bigger mystery of who this brand new Citizen V could possibly be. Definitely has me invested to keep reading and see where the series is going to go from here. Overall, I think I would feel comfortable giving this one a 7.5 out of 10. And then finally this week we have Wolverine Weapons of Armageddon issue number 2, aka I guess the only X-Men book I'm reading now. But hey, you know what? When this one delivers, it really delivers. Zdarsky is weaving a really fun, really compelling story using a lot of, skullduggery and spy cloak and dagger. I enjoyed how they retconned Nuke and Logan's origin to be more closely related now. It's not particularly showy or over the top, but it didn't have to be. I like that Nuke is really motivated in this story in a way that he hasn't been in a really long time to try and get even with a hero. David Colton continues to be a lot of fun. I like that they actually name him the Lost Captain America in this issue. It really helps build his legacy that, of course, Zdarsky started back in the first run of his brand new Captain America book. The new Wolverine-type character that they're building up here also has really piqued my interest as well, especially the fact that he gets his power not just from adamantium, but pico technology, meaning that, maybe Armageddon will actually have more connective tissue with the end of this brand new Ultimate Universe, and maybe they will end up making lemonade out of some of the leftover lemons. Overall, I would actually give this one a very positive 8 out of 10. It's just a good, old-fashioned action romp starring Wolverine, and I can't really ask for much more. But you know what? That'll just about do it for me in another Sunday, everyone. I hope you had a good week. I hope you read some really good books, and I hope you will join me again next week when we get to do this all over again. Assume any book that I didn't cover this week, I will end up kicking down the road to next week. It's the end of the month, which means there's less books to choose from in general, so we're going to do some fun wrap-up then, everyone. So until then, bye-bye.